Right, thanks very much, everyone. I'm always a bit suspicious when somebody describes me as an expert, because we've all heard the definition of an expert. You can break it down into two parts. Ex, former, and spurt is a drip under pressure. So at the end of this, you'll be able to make a decision on which one you think I fit into. I do love coming here. Last time I came here, I opened my curtains. It was boiling hot, and I came down here, and you were all having a rave. Yeah, a few guilty faces around. This morning I opened the curtains and it is peeing down. So I expected you all to be out in the car park building an ark, because frankly, I think it's going to be more appropriate today. What I'm going to do today is go into LinkedIn. It's a huge subject, but I've got 40 minutes to give you an overall feel for it. There will be something in there for every single one of you, I'm sure. And we've got a question and answer session afterwards. If you have an absolutely boiling question you want to ask immediately, fine. But if we go down the path too far, I'll pull it back, if that's okay, and go on with the rest of the presentation. So, who am I? Why do I talk about LinkedIn? Well, my background is sales and marketing, and that's where I come at LinkedIn from. I'm not an IT techie. I'm not even social media. Ask me about Facebook and I'm not particularly good. But on LinkedIn, I know it inside out. And why do I know that? Well, I've been on LinkedIn a fair amount of time. June 2005. The fact that I've got an email from 2005 says more about me than anything else, I think. But that's my joining email, 2005. At that time, LinkedIn had 2.7 million users and about 15 to 20 people. I thought that was a great networking tool. So I joined up. And for the next few years, I did nothing, absolutely nothing, except when I decided to move jobs. And then there was a mass rush round to get my online CV up to date. I work in the pharmaceutical industry most of my career. And my last job, I was running a company across Europe for an Australian startup. It was probably the best job I've ever had because my boss was asleep every time I was awake and vice versa. It was fantastic. But one of the days he did track me down. He said, Steve, we've got this product. It's highly specialised. It's a hospital-only product. It's for children. It's for cystic fibrosis, actually, if anyone knows what cystic fibrosis is. He said, and we'd like you to find a distributor for it in Spain. I don't speak Spanish. I didn't have anyone in the Spanish network at all that I could talk to. So I decided, right, well, let's actually try using LinkedIn as maybe it should be used. Within 2 days, I tracked down about 7 or 8 companies that dealt with what are called orphan drugs. You don't need to know that, but they're quite specialised. I found some who were interested in paediatrics and respiratory. I contacted 4 of their business development managers. And to cut a long story short, from that, we negotiated a deal worth approximately 5 million euros over 3 years. That was when I finally decided, bing, there's more to LinkedIn than just actually a CV. And ever since then, I have been working on LinkedIn. I've had 3 years as a sales and marketing trainer on LinkedIn. And that's the way I put it. It's sales and marketing. It's no good just doing social media and not actually getting anything out of it. So what I will be telling you today is how to get something out of LinkedIn. But if that's not enough to get you going, why should you bother with LinkedIn? Well, first of all, it's the numbers. I don't know if you can see that okay. It's now 600 million people on LinkedIn, over 500 million people worldwide. It's actually been going longer than Facebook. People don't realise that, but it's actually been available longer than Facebook. And there are 25 million users in the UK alone. 25 million profiles. But actually, I don't treat it as social media. I treat it as an online version of what we're doing in this room here, which is networking. Starting conversations, talking to people, finding out what they need, what they want, and how you can help. And that'll be a theme I come back to a lot as I go through the presentation. Most of all, it's free to use. I know one of the questions I will get is it worth getting the premium version? And I'm happy to answer that at the end. But except for 1 or 2 very small parts that I'll point out as I go through, everything I tell you today, you can do on the free version of LinkedIn. So it's a free tool, why not use it? But if the numbers don't do anything for you, here's some other information that will. 50% of traffic from social media sites that go to business websites or blogs come from LinkedIn. That's more than every other social media put together. So certainly if you're in the business to business spot, you really do need to be using it, if only to direct traffic towards your website. But if you're not in business to business, if you're mainly B2C, it's still valuable. You remember those 24 million people, 24 million profiles I mentioned previously? Yeah, they're professional profiles, but those people have a private life. They buy things on the internet all the time. When they go home at the weekends, they're actually using LinkedIn in a B2C capacity. So there is possibilities for both sides. The other thing here, 50% of business to business buyers say they use LinkedIn when making a buying decision. Now that means if your profile is not found, if it's falling too far down the list, if it's not being found, it's not being interacted with, you'll be missing out on business you didn't even know existed, because people check you on LinkedIn before they even start talking to you. And I know that from personal experience, from my coaching clients. The other big difference with LinkedIn is that people using it tend to trust it. About 70% of people trust what they read on LinkedIn. Now that doesn't mean they accept everything unconditionally, and there's been a little bit of a move towards a more social media atmosphere on LinkedIn recently. But that figure, compared to something like Facebook or, God forbid, Twitter, where you get quite a lot of stuff which is not accurate or professional, that is a really powerful thing. So your customers are there looking for your services and they trust what they see. If you're not being found, you're going to lose out. Just give you a quick story. I had a client who was a dispute resolution solicitor. He was in London, he was a senior partner, and he came to me, he said, "Steve, I'm not being found on LinkedIn at all." And we looked and we went through dispute resolution solicitor, London, and he was right. We went through 10 pages of LinkedIn results. After 2, you're lost anyway, but we went through 10. He was nowhere to be found. I spent 2 hours with him going through a lot of what I'll be talking to you about, but actually working with him and doing the changes then and there. I was surprised. At the end of 2 hours, we ran the search again, and he was on the second page of the LinkedIn search results. And yet next morning, he rang me up quite early in the morning. He just got into the office and he popped up on the first page of LinkedIn results. So what I'm telling you does work. There are real reasons for doing it, and it does work. Okay, so let's get on to LinkedIn itself. There are 2 parts of LinkedIn. There's the profile, which I'm going to be talking mainly about today. That is what gets you found, is interesting, is interacted with, and is the foundation for everything you do on LinkedIn. Even if you're found, if you have a rubbish profile in the end, people aren't going to be all that interested in looking at it in more detail. So we'll go into the profile, but I'll also talk about communication strategy. As you went around the room, a lot of you were saying, well, I post a little bit on LinkedIn. The second part of LinkedIn is where you reach out proactively to people. And that is the part that is not ignored, but not so well known. People know about the profile. Some people know about posting, but actually finding customers that you don't know about on LinkedIn, approaching them, starting a conversation with them is where a real powerful part of LinkedIn lies. So let's go on to the profile first of all. I've got about 8 tips for you. As I say, if you follow these, I'm not promising that you'll get on the first page of the LinkedIn results, but it will do your profile no harm whatsoever. And actually the first suggestion I make is appropriate for LinkedIn, but it's also appropriate for just about everything you do in marketing. You've seen pictures like this before, I'm sure some of you will. What do people see on the left-hand side? Oh, 3 things. That is a first. So, anyone? Old woman. Old woman?
Yeah, attractive lady.
Attractive lady, yep. for those of you who can't see one or the other, the old woman is with a long nose, pointy chin, mouth. Yeah? Ah, there was some there, didn't see it. Young woman is in profile. There's the jutting chin, and there's an eye looking down. No right or wrong about it. Eventually, when you've looked at it as often as I do, you get a sort of weird in-between one where it keeps switching between the two.
I like to see an animal with its mouth wide open, swallowing up the young woman's head.
Right. So, okay. I think that just proves my point, actually. You can see lots of different things in these. The one on the right I just put there, who sees a mouse? Yeah. Who sees a head? Yeah. Yeah. Head, eyes, nose, collar line. And there's a dolphin's profile. There would be, wouldn't there? Okay. We're going to have a chat afterwards. I want to see those. Why am I bothering you with some optical illusions? Well, everybody, when they come to LinkedIn, talk about my profile. And when they start writing their profile, they're writing their profile. Now, what I'm saying is that they shouldn't be focusing on themselves. What they should be focusing on is what I call it, what's in it for them. What's in it for them means the solution you provide to the problems that your customer has. Let me give you one example from some work I was doing the other day. I had a group of 20 medical writers in the room. Now, these medical writers are very good at taking complex facts and making them simpler. Believe it or not, simpler for doctors, for pharmacists, for the general public. Great. I started looking through their profiles. The vast majority started with the same words. I am a medical writer who has 20, 10, 5, 7 years experience of medical writing. I have worked for this company, that company, whatever. Okay, apart from the fact after 20 it gets really tedious, what are they offering their clients? They're offering experience. They're all offering experience. One of them had a different approach. And her approach was to put up front, I talk doctor, pharmacist and patient. Because what the customers want is somebody who can take complicated information and make it simple and straightforward for their clients, who are pharmacists, doctors and patients. And she was way ahead of what the others were doing, who were just telling people about themselves. Same goes for anything. You know, you can go for, well, you see, LinkedIn trainer and coach. How do you make that something that's interesting to individuals? So as we go through, I'll be coming back to what's in it for them quite a bit. Your profile. You have less than 10 seconds to make an impact on your profile. Is there a... No. And that basically is all they see. Within that 10 seconds, you've got to engage with them enough so that they're prepared to invest a bit more time to look at the rest of your profile. If you don't, they're gone. All you have to do that is what you've got on the right-hand side of the screen. What you need to do is grab their attention. Have a photo. Who has got a photo on their LinkedIn profile? I won't ask who hasn't. If you haven't got a profile, you're around 30 times less likely to be actually engaged with on LinkedIn. People do not like seeing blanks or pictures of you with the kids. People want to do business with people. It's not really surprising. They want to see you. So have one. It's not complicated. Don't try to make it complicated. There's somebody who does professional photography at the back. I always say spend a little bit of money and actually get some professional headshots done. Yeah.
A lot of people come out and the photo for you is called one of the drives. It's I've got a sort of LinkedIn photograph that's awful.
Yeah.
Try it yourself, it looks awful. Then have a conversation about styling, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the LinkedIn is becoming a bit of a focus for people coming in for corporate business headshot.
Yeah. Well, there's two people joining LinkedIn every second. So there are a lot of people joining and a lot of people sorting out headshots. The good thing is if you get some headshot session, you can get some done for different media anyway and for some promotional material and so on. You can do it yourself. Make sure it's got well lit, in focus, and not having a distracting background. I had a lady who came to me, she'd had an awful photo. She said, "It's all right, Steve, I've had it done. My husband's taken a picture of me against a brick wall. It was well lit, it was a head and shoulders shot. The trouble was she'd missed the drain pipe coming down. And she actually had a chimney coming out of out of her head." But hey, and yeah, these are, I don't think some of them aren't still, but these are real photographs that have come from a LinkedIn profile. This particular one, fuzzy, it's out of focus, it's poorly lit, it's awful, basically. All the technical problems you could get, she never actually moved it in terms of size and it's distorted. This one, apart from the fact that somebody the other day said it looks as if the lady's beheaded somebody and is holding up the head, the reason that's bad is it's not a head and shoulder shot, it's a full body shot. And frankly, what do people want? They want to see people, they want to see who they're doing business with. This guy's trying to be jokey. That may well be okay on LinkedIn, on Facebook, but it's not for LinkedIn. This guy's obviously into the V for Vengeance, is it? Or V for Vendetta, thank you. Or basically a hacker. If you do that, people aren't going to interact with you. They're not interested. So, pictures of you with the kids, climbing Everest. I had a solicitor, believe it or not, whose profile picture she'd taken from Facebook. And it was a picture of her sitting in the mud, in her wellies, outside a tent at Glastonbury, swigging from a bottle of champagne. And that was her professional profile picture. So, do that. Don't have 2 people in there. I had one the other day with 3 people, and I'm thinking, which person's profile is it? Really, really.
I was working for a recruitment agent once.
Yep.
We were going through profiles on LinkedIn for potential people. We found a finance director on my books. Her LinkedIn profile was her in a negligee.
There are rumours of a picture of a naked man playing a piano. I've never found it, but apparently there is one out there. I don't know. So that may be folklore. But, you know, get it right. It's simple. Make it easy to... Sorry.
Well, just some companies will actually monitor the LinkedIn and will have a say. You know, we'll bring a photographer in and quite strict on what you can have, especially if it refers to the company you work for.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the self-employed people who probably are going off on a tangent.
It could be. Just one thing about that. People always ask whose profile is it. I've actually heard of some companies holding back profiles from people. That is not right. The profile is yours, the information. If you move companies, you should be able to take it with you. And a hint, if you actually have, go into the settings and set your home address as your main email address, your home email address. And then you can always get access to it, as opposed to working for megacorp.co.uk and losing your access to it if you move on. You could be right about self-employed people. Make it easy to contact you. I am amazed at how many people. This is a contact section. In fact, in the last few weeks, that contact information has moved over here. Those of you who are on LinkedIn as nerds like me a lot will notice that. Doesn't matter. It's exactly the same as it was before. Open that. If it hasn't got an email address where you can be contacted or a telephone number that people can contact you on, why have you got it there? You really should have that information available. There is the opportunity of actually connecting to 3 different websites in there. Can't go into details on how to do that, but look at it and there's an option for 3 websites. Who's got 3 websites? No, I thought not. Who's got 3 different pages on a website that offers different services? So you may want to go plumbing or gas fitting or whatever. I want people to go to various things. I want people to go to sales training. I want people to go to one-to-one coaching. You can actually personalize the link so that it doesn't go to the first page of your website. It goes directly to the page that you want them to see. It's so much easier So irritating when you click on a link and up comes the front page of the website and you have to go all the way through it to try and find what you're talking about. There's a URL as well on LinkedIn. If you look at the top when you're on the LinkedIn profile, it might say something like Stephen Doyle /7563UY. You can edit that so that you can make it usable on marketing material. You can edit it. Your name may be gone, but you can add your name with an underscore and your company, or PR, or HR, or whatever you want to do, or a state agency. You can put that there. So it's worth doing to make your LinkedIn profile part of your marketing mix. Now, one point I would say is only your first and second line connection. Now, do people understand the idea of first and second line connections? No, yes, no. Right, okay. Let me explain very quickly. The reason it's important is the closer they are to you, if they're first or second line, the more you can interact with them. So if I'm connecting to you and we both agree to connect, we are first line connections. Great. And that's the number that comes up, the 500 or the 300 or the 2. That is the number of first line connections you have. However, I then get access to everyone who's connected to you, but not me. They become second line connections of mine. All your first line connections become second lines. Everyone still with me? Okay. And then everybody's second line connections become my third line connections. And that means, and as we'll see later, that the number of people each person you connect with gives you access to is huge, absolutely huge. So even with your 2 connections, you're saying, if they've each got on average 800 connections, you've suddenly got 1,600 second line connections that you can talk to. You can ask them to connect to you. And then, and I'm not going to try and do it in my head, on average 800 connections, 1,600 times 800, you've got thousands of third level connections. So that's why it's like pushing a pea off of a avalanche place. It picks up speed very, very quickly and you end up with lots and lots of people. Okay, have a banner on your LinkedIn profile. This is where it gets a little bit difficult with corporations, as you were saying, about whether you have it. But certainly if you've got your own company, brand it as you would your website. And then people immediately know what you do. I've got my linking business and I tell people what I do up front. Don't forget, you're still in the first 10 seconds. It may be worthwhile actually getting this done by somebody because the LinkedIn template is really complicated in terms of doing it. I suggest you go along to People by the Hour as a website, or Fiverr, where they have, it's a freelancer website. And they will put you together, if you send them an idea, they will put together, or anybody. And you do it on Canva, absolutely. The trouble is the settings can be a bit difficult, but it's worth getting a banner done. It really is. It'll cost 15 quid, something like that. Really, really nothing. And the amount of branding it gives you is really good. Okay, let's get into the LinkedIn profile itself. Yeah, sorry.
Quick question about the banner. If, for example, I use the banner, and my husband uses the banner, the same banner, the same company, and then some of our employees use the same banner, is that okay? Or
Yeah, I'm suggesting you brand your business using the banner, not.
But I mean, if we all use the same banner, because it's got the company
Yeah,
logo or whatever on there,
that's great. You just have to upload it to each profile, but that's fine. That's fine. Okay, headline. The section underneath your name is called your headline. And what do most people put in there? Their job description. Director, founder, owner, if you've got a business, or product manager, sales director, HR manager, HR director. And that's it. That is the part that is searched by LinkedIn search engines most frequently. It's given the highest priority on the LinkedIn search engines. First of all, you have to have your profile filled in completely. If you haven't got what's called an all-star profile, you need to make sure that all the sections are filled in. And if you do what I'm telling you, you'll have those all filled in. But this part is where they start looking for keywords. Now, if somebody's looking for a sales director, that's fine. But what you've got opportunity there to do is make sure that they are using what's in it for them. What do people see? In the first 10 seconds still, generate leads by using LinkedIn effectively. What's in it for them? They've got a problem with leads, they want to generate it, and they're not using LinkedIn. It's summarized in the first few lines. And then I've got LinkedIn trainer and coach, because those are the search terms that I look for. LinkedIn speaker, I also do some pharma marketing interim work as well, so that's up there, but it's a bit of a bit misleading for this group. So put in a strap line that tells people what you do up front, because that's the first thing they're going to read. Use capitals to separate it out. I don't use it consistently, but as you can see, separating it out, and actually separate it instead of just putting it all together in a headline. Use something like the spaces to separate them. If you want those spaces, they're not available in LinkedIn. Just go onto my profile and cut and paste them into yours. It's the easy way of doing it. I always suggest actually people put things together on Word before you update it. You've got 125 characters there. On average, people use about 20 or 30. And that's the prime real estate for searching for LinkedIn. Okay. Why is the headline important? Does anyone sit there on a bored Friday afternoon and Google or LinkedIn their own name? I don't believe you. Somebody out there does. I just don't believe you. But anyway, I did this just to actually demonstrate to you. That's the LinkedIn search engine. You can see that headline goes everywhere with you on LinkedIn. So every time they see my picture, they're seeing generate leads by using LinkedIn effectively. That's when I'm found in search, when I post, and when I comment on a post. So constantly you are associating your name with what you provide. And what you provide, because you're using lots of what's in it for them, what you provide to your potential clients. So it's useful. It's useful not only there, but also on Google. There's a very close tie-in between LinkedIn and Google. I think LinkedIn is Google's sixth or seventh most favored site. So they're constantly searching Google. If you put your name into Google, you're most likely to come up with a LinkedIn profile, if you've got a LinkedIn profile. And look what it says. On that particular one, I put Steve Doyle LinkedIn. Steve Doyle, LinkedIn trainer, generate leads by using LinkedIn effectively. Quite useful as a way of getting on the first page of LinkedIn. Same goes for company pages. Has anyone actually put together a company page on LinkedIn? If you search for your company page, probably your website will come up first, but not necessarily always. Sometimes your LinkedIn company page will come up, a link to it.
Are these ones you can follow?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can actually follow people as well. You can follow individuals, but yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have time today. We can talk about it when we have the question and answer session. Company pages are more restricted than personal pages, and they have to be linked to a personal page. But they're worth doing. It's worth it because they come up on Google, and they're probably the first independent link you'll get on Google for your company, because it's such a high tie-in. Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, make sure they want to find out more. Now, if your headline is important there, this section, which used to be called the summary, as they always change names every 6 months, somebody decides to change names. This section is now called about, which anyway.
That's kind of linking all social media. They all seem to have an about.
Yes, and that's part of Microsoft's push to make this more social media-y. Media-y? Well, whatever. Only the first few lines of that are seen, and that's a summary. There's 2,000 characters you can use on your summary. 2,000. Some people don't even know it's there, and that's why their profiles are scoring very, very low. If you have if you want to fill in the section effectively, what you need to do is write those first 3 lines. I can't remember exactly how many characters it is because it varies. Play around with it a little bit. But make that really full of what's in it for them and interesting for them to open. So, most people start, what do they start with? I am a medical writer of X years experience. By the time I finish reading that, I'm on to the next one. Put it in terms of what they want. So, business not growing as you would like, question mark. No, I could do with more. Need to find, connect, engage with new customers? Yep. Are you using LinkedIn effectively? It's all questions to the customer about the potential problems they would have. So hopefully you've got them going, yeah, I'd like to get more sales. I'm not using LinkedIn. If not, you may be missing out. Well, I better read this in a bit more depth. Do you get the idea? Can you see the way it's written rather than just saying, I'm a LinkedIn trainer and coach with 40 years sales and marketing experience. It's all about me. It's far better to say what you do for the clients. And as you can see, it then goes on. Hopefully they've opened it by then, and then you can go into more depth. Use search terms that you want to be found for. Tell them then about what you will offer them. So that's when I do go into as a sales and marketing professional with over 25 years. Oh, blimey, I need to update that. Marketing experience. I'm passionate about making sure business get more from their marketing. You can see the difference.
That's quite important because you've actually spaced it for what's then following.
Yeah, the first 3 lines I absolutely certain fit on the first page, and then I've got thanks for reading my summary. So the first thing they do is they look at that first, open it, thanks for reading my summary, which is quite a nice approach. I also see summaries which are full blocks of copy. You know what reading a full block of copy looks like. It's awful. So break it up. You can put paragraphs in there. You can put little stars in there. You can put indents. Make sure that you play around with it. Make it look attractive and easy to read. Use search words in the copy, the keywords in the copy. How do you find out what your search words are for your particular thing? Well, try running Google a number of times and see what brings up your competitors or people like you, and then start half-inching those terms to include in your profiles. Add some personal facts if you like. I don't actually, but a colleague I know, actually, yes, he was a middle-aged man going through a midlife crisis when he bought his Harley Davidson, but he put that on LinkedIn, and you'll be amazed how many middle-aged men with midlife crises who want to talk about Harley Davidsons there are. So he got lots of contacts through people just by putting Harley Davidson on there. But that's entirely open to you. The other thing people don't realise is what you can put on LinkedIn. You may well have lead magnets or presentations or bits of video or audio on your website. You can put all of that onto LinkedIn. And putting video onto LinkedIn, I think somebody mentioned they thought they'd increase by the number of people who were coming to their site because they put video on. Absolutely. If you can put some video on your LinkedIn profile, it's well worth doing.
And then you can post it, and you can put an article. Can you put a video in your actual profile? Okay.
So, yeah.
It's actually on your profile.
Yeah, it's on the first page. Click on that and you'll have a brief video from me. And I don't particularly like having videos done, I must say. We were talking about this earlier. But a brief video from me, about a minute, telling you about LinkedIn and why it's important.
Does it tell you how many views you get?
It does if you go through to your YouTube channel, which is what I do. So yes, the answer. The other thing you can do is links to landing pages. So this link here, which I'll actually give you later, goes through to a free downloadable book that I produced on LinkedIn. The 10 ways to supercharge your LinkedIn profile. You can download it. I've had that up there, I've updated it over the time, but 3 years, I still get dozens of downloads of that every month. And what do? Once they've downloaded, I contact them and start a conversation. And what's more, they're actually onto my database, not LinkedIn's database, but my database, my website database. So it's very useful to me. So yes, you can load any of this into your summary section or your current experience section. Yes, sorry.
Just ask, would that impact on your characters?
No, it's what the
Adding those
no, no, it's completely separate. Okay. If you're linking to a PDF, or if you've got a PDF there, no, it doesn't add to the character rate.
Sorry, Steve, that first one, the yellow one, is that a particular?
It's audio, just audio file. No, there are some files they have a little bit of trouble with, but if you just go into LinkedIn Help and say supported files, they'll give you a list of the supported files. They tend to talk about files that are supported when you're posting, because I was trying to load up an MP4 file yesterday and I was having a bit of trouble with it. But try it and see. Vast majority of video files you will get on there with no problems.
I say actually, the native being out of my phone won't work. You
No.
have to use a converting app to turn to MP4 or others, but
Yeah.
so they won't accept an MOV file.
Well, you've got the one that doesn't. The vast majority of files do. I am not a techie. I don't know a MOV file from an MP4 file, and I get the vast majority of the stuff I want to on there without too much trouble. I've also there presentations, use status updates to repost useful information. You all seem to be saying, well, I do a little bit. If you're a bit worried about posting, just start by reposting something that's already there that you find useful. On social media, generally, what they're talking about is amusing, entertaining stuff. No problem with posting amusing, entertaining stuff on LinkedIn. If you go on my profile, there's a couple of bits of amusing video, but it's associated with work. One is a training course where somebody's fallen asleep, and the trainer tells everyone to start clapping, and the poor woman goes, ah, clapping. So quite amusing. So I put it on LinkedIn. So you can put a video on there. But write posts yourself. Once you're ready, start writing them. You're worried about getting it right. As long as it's about a work or professional related thing, you're probably going to be okay.
Steve, just to go back to what we said about use status updates
Yeah.
to repost something you've previously published. Could you give an example? What would you say, rather than like here's some old thing that I previously posted? How would you?
Well, I wouldn't always say, here's some old stuff I've done before. No, I take your point. I was doing a post yesterday. I haven't yet made it live, but it was on recommendations on LinkedIn. And what I do is I do a long form post, which goes on as an article. It also goes, a similar one goes onto my blog page on my website. And then I do a very shortened version of it, which I post on the stream as a post. So you're getting 2 or 3 bites of the cherry from that. So article might be 400 to 600 words long. You can post that as an article on LinkedIn, and then you can post a short post which refers to that article, and people will actually read the first bit about it and then click on the link that goes through. It's really easy to do, and we can talk about it afterwards. I just want to push on at the moment through this. Get recommended. Who gets business from referrals? Yeah, that's a good way of getting business. Who has an online process for actually recording those recommendations and referrals? LinkedIn is really effective at that. There's a section called recommendations. When I go to somebody and I'm looking at them as either a supplier or as somebody to contact, I will always look at how many recommendations they have. If they've got one from 10 years ago, it doesn't say much about what they're doing at the moment. And actually, as a LinkedIn trainer, I'll point out that they've only got one recommendation.
Can I just ask on that, because obviously that's quite important.
Yeah.
We also get, lots of companies get testimonials and things like that. So if you've had some positive feedback from the service that you provide. Is it that individual that you're asking to put a recommendation on LinkedIn,
Or
then us putting that on the...
no, yeah, for LinkedIn, what you do is you go into ask for a recommendation, which is on your recommendations section.
Sending that to the customer.
Yeah, and it's a templated thing. So click on that. You're then asked to enter the name. Enter the name. Only first level connections can give you a recommendation. Only people you've actually attached to, which is just as well because you'd have all and sundry doing it. So find Joe Bloggs, who you want to give type that in, click a button. You'll then be offered the chance to say how you know him or her. They were a client. And then there's a chance to send a message. Always write a personalised message. It's a big thing about LinkedIn. Don't use their standard messages. It says you cannot be bothered to write a message for them. So say to them, remember the piece of work I did for you last month? You said that it increased the number of views you had on your website, let's say, by 200%. Could you say that? Vast majority of people do that. They're very good at actually putting recommendations there. And your aim should be to have a minimum of 5 recommendations that are recent. The recommendation from your mate from 10 years ago when you worked at corporation, whatever, is really not very effective. I know people who really give good service, and I look at their LinkedIn profile and I despair because they haven't got one recommendation on there. The more recommendations, the better, and keep it updated. Sorry, to answer you, I think I'm going. They can recommend you as well as you ask them for a recommendation. I'm sorry, yet I understand your question now. No. You do get to say whether it goes onto your profile or not. So, and you can ask them to update it. You can ask them to update it. I've done that with a couple of my clients who've come along to a talk like this and recommended me. Then they come along to one of my coaching workshops and I've said, could you just say that you come to a coaching workshop, and they can redo it. So you can update it, but you can't backdate it.
Yeah, so someone that I did some work for 5 years ago that is actually, like, because they are in a senior position, there's a nice piece of work.
Yeah, and the date will be as of today, yeah, which actually works in your favour. Yes.
Does that look bad, or actually that looks quite...
No, that looks fine. It looks as if you've got your act together and are actually starting to do it. That's not a problem. Not all from the same company. Okay, those are the 8 tips. Quick run through. Does it make a difference? Well, my wife's an accountant. My son is an accountant. So when I'm a long way away from them, I like making jokes about accountants. Accountants and solicitors are generally pretty poor at LinkedIn. This is a typical accountant's profile. You may not be, I don't know if you can read it on the screen, okay, but just to give you an example. A certified accountant in Birmingham, okay? Before that, they were a certified accountant somewhere else. And before that, any guesses? Yeah, that's right. And before that, they were assistant retail accountant, and by that time, I'd turned off, just not interested. But hold on, they've got one recommendation. It's a lady. I click on that lady's recommendation and go through to her profile. I always check people out. I'm suspicious in that way. Funnily enough, she's got one recommendation. And would you like to guess who's given each other recommendations? Yeah. So not particularly powerful. They're not real recommendations. If you were looking for an accountant, would you be that inclined to do business with them? This lady, who I'm sure will be taking out a restraining order against me because I look at her profile so often because it's a very, very good profile. She is an accountant. She helps doctors discover wealth through tax. I've had 40 years of working with doctors in the pharmaceutical industry. If there's one thing that really gets them going, it's holding on to their wealth. And if you can do it through tax, that's great. That's a really good line. And she goes on, speaker and an accountant for medics. See what she's done. She's got a huge amount of information there, videos to download, white papers, suggestions on how you can improve things. Really, really powerful stuff. She even shows doctors how they can go away to a medical conference in Orlando and get it all tax deductible, including taking the kids along. I'm not quite sure how that works, but hey, that's going to be something that's interesting to people. So, does it make a difference? Yes, it does. Okay. How are we doing for time?
Well, at that point, Steve, I'm going to push pause.
Yeah.
And we're going to send people away to have a...
As I said, those tips were to get your profile up and running. The second part, just going to cover briefly because I love it so much and it is so powerful. I really want to share it with you. That's communication strategy. Sounds pretty tedious. It's where you make LinkedIn work proactively for you. And it's where you connect to other people. Now, you've just seen how you can connect with a large number of people quite quickly when you're in a group. I normally do that at the end because part of that was bad practice. When you connected with people using the app, it just fired off an automatic message to them, I'd like you to be part of my network. Normally, I always say, when you're trying to get somebody to be part of your network, do not use the standard message. Look at their profile and tailor it. You'll get a much, much higher response rate. Now, when you're all in a group and you've all agreed and you're all talking to each other and you all know it, that sort of process is okay. But if you're connecting to somebody who you don't know, make sure that you don't use the standard LinkedIn connection request. I think it says something, I'd like to be part of your network. So what? You know, if somebody comes to me and says, I might be able to help you with something, or I'm looking to connect with people in the Reading area, new businesses, they've looked at my profile, they know where I come from, they know what my business is, so I'm more inclined to connect with them. But you can get 70 to 80% connection rate on people you don't know, connecting with them on LinkedIn, providing you do it. But why bother? Who are you going to connect to? How are you going to find them? Let's go through some of that. Why bother? If you went to a networking meeting and came to that meeting and it had the same people every time you went along, nobody knew ever, nobody knew to be introduced to, would you find that a particularly useful way of connecting? No. Would it be useful for business? It might for a few months, but it'd quickly go off the term. I've had people say to me, I will only ever connect with people on LinkedIn who I have met in the flesh and shaken their hands and talked to them. Great. That's like a LinkedIn networking meeting where you're not actually seeing anybody new. I suggest you keep it as open as possible. It's all about networking. There are people I don't connect with. Normally they've got about 4 connections. Sorry, it's not the 2 connections, but 4 connections. 3! And they're from Mumbai or Saudi Arabia. We all get those? Yeah, you will. So I don't connect with them. I never bother. Just turn down their request. But by having more connections, you actually go up the LinkedIn search message scale. So it's worth doing. It also increases your ability to search. Now, do you remember when I was talking about first and second level connections, third level connections? This is where it becomes important. First of all, get to 500 connections. That may sound a huge number when you've got 3, but actually it's quite surprising. Once you start talking to ex-clients or current clients, you get up to that number very quickly. Why 500? Well, below 500, the exact number of connections you've got is shown. So if you've got 3, it'll show 3 connections. And that does cause a credibility gap sometimes. So you need to get to a couple of hundred and then on to 500. But the number of connections you have massively increases a pool of people you can search. On average, believe it or not, people have 850 connections. In fact, some people have 30,000. There is a limit, 30,000. Why they've got 30,000, I have no idea, because I find that totally counterproductive. But if you've got an average number of connections, 850, And they've each got 850 connections. That gives you, in theory, 722,000 people you can search and connect with. Now, it doesn't quite work with that, and I'm normally got somebody at the back who says, Steve, it's not like that because there's an overlap between them. Yeah, there is. But it gives you an idea of how the snowball effect works. And when you start searching for your ideal customers, you want as big a search pool as you can in order to get them. And actually, you can get your third level connection. So if you take that 722 and multiply it by another 850, that shows how many third level connections you've got. Now, LinkedIn will tell you cannot connect to third level connections directly. You can. I can't show you now, but there is a way of doing that, and you can connect with them. So you've got a huge number. How much would a mailing list of 750,000 people with their email address, their name, their title, their potentially telephone number and what they do, how much would that cost you? You've got it for free with LinkedIn, so it's really worthwhile. Identify, though, your target audience. I had a client who came in to me. He was a professor of robotics, brilliant man, but he knew absolutely nothing against sales and marketing. He'd invented a bit of software which made robotic arms more efficient. No idea. You know these arms that they use in production. It makes it more efficient. He said it's 25% more efficient. People can save millions of pounds. I said, well, I say he didn't know about sales and marketing. He knew who his target audience was. He said, I need to talk to software engineers, designers who work on robotic arms. I said, is robotics enough? No, it's got to be robotic arms. Okay. And they work in the automotive industry. He said, can you find anyone on LinkedIn for me? I did. I found him 850 people who met that criteria, which were his key target audience. I then showed him how to go away, connect with them, and then start a conversation. He had his target audience sorted out for the next 2 years, basically, just through doing that one search. You can search by industry. Another way of going in is via company. If you want a particular company, you want to connect with somebody in there, say the marketing director, go into the company and look under people who work here. It's connections who also work here. Click on that and then look for marketing director and you'll find them. That's how I connected with marketing director at Google. Look at their companies, look in groups. We don't have time to go into it in any depth, and when we do a workshop I go into this in far more depth. But there are thousands of groups on LinkedIn. The good thing about joining a group is once you have been accepted by the group, everybody in that group suddenly becomes a first level connection when you talk to them in the group. So there's some in there with 40 or 50,000 people that you can potentially search and look for under that particular group. Tied in with your offline networking. When I started this, I started doing this business. I didn't even really know about networking coming from a corporate environment. I started going along to a lot of networking meetings and I started connecting with people on LinkedIn. Just say, do you mind if I connect with LinkedIn? Just send a simple message to them. When you get back, you'll build your connections really quickly. There is a format with LinkedIn that allows you to look at who has looked at your profile. Have you all seen that? There's a section called Who's Looked at My Profile. What do people do with that? Say, oh, that's good. I've had another 100 people look at my profile in this year.
I did have a guy and I actually contacted him.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Think of LinkedIn. Think of LinkedIn as a shop. Your profile is a shop. Somebody has come in, looked around, walked around the aisles, and started going out. Now, if you were the shopkeeper, what would you say?
Can I help you?
Absolutely. So, I'd like to say everyone, but then somebody's going to show me that I didn't do it to everyone. I like to say everyone who comes onto my profile who I don't know, I follow up with a connection request. And I say, basically, thanks for coming by my profile. I hope you found what you wanted. Is there anything I can help you with? Or, if that's too pushy, I'm looking to build connections with sales managers or whatever they are. Would you like to connect with me? as I say, 70 to 80% connection rate on people who just blundered into my profile. LinkedIn search is also really, really powerful. Most people don't know how to use LinkedIn search at all. They use it by typing in somebody's name, which is great if you've got their name. You can actually, in this section up here, I've put sales director. I put sales director and United Kingdom. I come up with 761,000 of them in my network. Now that's probably too much, but you can add filters. So use a keyword there, sales director, 761,000, and then you can use this filters to connect to filter down. So if I wanted to know sales directors in the Guildford postcode who worked in the leisure industry or the IT industry, you can use that sort of search on LinkedIn. It's as specific as that. Just another quick story. I love the stories that explain things. I went to a networking meeting in Eastbourne. The guy there ran a commercial removals business. He said, Steve, can you help me? I've been trying to find a particular person or particular skill set. He said, I've just won a big contract moving loads of stuff from the Leeds Royal Armoury. I don't know if you've ever been there. Swords, guns, bullets, whatever, down to the Imperial War Museum in London. He said, the trouble is they're all deactivated, but I can't drive around with a load of rockets and guns in the back without having somebody with me who's got a particular license. People don't talk about it. They don't mention it on Google. Can you help me on LinkedIn? I was in Eastbourne. I showed him how to search for it. I gave him a search phrase. By the time I'd got back to Reading 2 hours later, he'd already sent me an email saying, I found 4 people. One of them's already talking to me and wants to work with me. So that's the degree of specificity you can get. And then just quickly, how do you connect with others? I've already talked about one of my pet hates, which is the standard message. Personalize those messages that go out. Even if you're doing a bit of a cut and paste, do a bit of personalization in there as well. Use information from the profile to build rapport. Another thing, if you want to connect with somebody and you're a bit worried about connecting with them because you're not quite sure, quick suggestion, go to their profile. Don't do anything. Come off your profile. And then watch for your own profile visits over the next 2 to 3 days. I believe about 50% of people, if you get a call on your phone and it's a telephone number, what do you think? Who the hell's that? Let's have a look. If somebody comes into your profile, you think, who's that? And you go and look at them. So the people I've gone in, looked at their profile, done nothing with, come back to my profile, they come in and look at mine. I then write the message that I write when everyone comes by my profile. Thanks for visiting my profile. I hope you found what you want. Would you like to connect? Now, I don't know if there's a mad panic at the other end when they're thinking, why the hell did I go on this guy's profile? But I'll connect. And you've got the connection with the person you wanted. Aim to start a conversation with people. Do not go in with a strong sell on LinkedIn. I've also put lead magnets down there. Do you know what lead magnets are? Generally, it's something you give away of value for free to people, normally via a website landing page, so a little white paper or a case study, something like that, that people can download. They give you their information. Used to be good. About a year ago, you used to be able to download all your connections from LinkedIn and pop them into MailChimp, and you've got your mailing list. Slightly unethical, but it wasn't banned. You cannot do that now. So you have to have a way of moving people from your LinkedIn profile. If you want to get them into a newsletter or something like that, you have to have an offer of something on your website. And that's where that book that I talked to you about, you remember when I was looking at showing you my profile, the connection through to where you download that particular book. So, okay, make sure you've got lead magnets. Summary, won't go through it. I hope what I've shown you is why LinkedIn is important and giving you a bit of an impetus in order to actually get it going. What you must avoid, do not go in with a strong sell on LinkedIn. Remember, it's about building rapport, starting a conversation. Quickest I've ever had a sales message through from LinkedIn, connecting with somebody, was 40 seconds. And that was an IT sales manager who was using LinkedIn dreadfully, probably using an automatic thing. I connected with him because I was doing work with IT sales teams. And he said, Steve, I'd like to tell you about the fact that we've got server sale on this month. Would you like to buy one, basically? I don't know what a server does. I'm one-man band, I don't need it. It was absolutely awful. Now, it doesn't happen as much as you think, but don't become one of these people who automatically goes in and starts selling on LinkedIn. Mentioned the free copy of the e-guide a couple of times. You can get it from my profile. Click on those media buttons or go along to my website, which is linkingbusiness.co.uk. It's inflated, it's got 9 points there, it's actually 10 points to supercharge your profile. It's got all the information I've given today plus a bit more. So if you have missed something today, I suggest you download that and you'll get some information. And what you'll also do is get an update from me on a monthly basis on new things on LinkedIn and hints and tips. Okay, also quickly wanted to mention something that's coming up later, I know. I've agreed to run a workshop here, so anyone who's got the taste for LinkedIn now, we will be running a workshop on the 30th of September here for anyone who wants to come along, which is a commercial proposition. It will be on Eventbrite. Okay, and that's it. Thanks very much, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Doyle. So we'll be sending out that information about that workshop and filling in some of the questions you no doubt have.